Hello, guys, and welcome to Russian Football News Predictions League Round 16. We are getting very, very close to the winter break now, only this weekend and next in terms of the league, and then the small, massive Russian Cup quarterfinals for a few teams next midweek. Well, having said that, Arsenal Tula absolutely hammered Orenburg, satisfyingly, 4-2 on Wednesday. That kind of snuck up on me, that one. I'd forgotten that there was one fixture early. Anyhow, to the league. We've got only 5 points between Zenit and Krasnodar. Krasnodar on fire. Zenit, I'm worried about them a little bit. They won at the weekend against Rostov 2-0, but I think they're starting to look a little bit tired. So I think potentially in the last two games before the winter break, we might see a slight shortening of that gap at the top of the table. Anyhow, first match, Rubin Kazan against Dynamo Moscow. I'm going to take my glasses off because I can see it reflecting there. Rubin last weekend, away to Anji Mahachkala. It's as I expected. I called a 1-1 draw because I saw that, and that's what happened. You see that all the time with Rubin Kazan away from home. And there's no shame in it. It's a solid way to build up or resist your momentum being broken by losing, by going for all-out attacks. 1-1 it was. Dynamo Moscow last weekend. Wow, I can't believe I'm saying this. They lost at home to Yenisei Krasnoyarsk. Yenisei's first away win of the season. And Dynamo Moscow, before the game, had the best home defensive record in the league. And somehow, out of nowhere, Yenisei won 2-1. So Dynamo's confidence will be a little bit shaken by that. They're now only 2 points above the relegation zone. So Rubin, they're ninth in the table, but they're only 2 points off fifth. And they really ought to be up there. So I see this being a win. I think it won't be a particularly enterprising one, so I'm just going to go for 1-0. Sorry about it, guys. I know it's not thrilling, but how many times do we say that? Yenisei at home to Akhmat Grozny. Now, this one is, like I mentioned, because of that result. Yenisei winning away from home. That I don't know where that came from. Akhmat Grozny away from home are a little short of desperate. They are absolutely appalling. I say they're appalling. They're not great. They're very unreliable. I think Yenisei are going to get a result here. Now, interestingly, this game originally was going to be played indoors because Yenisei have an indoor arena that is one of their reserve grounds. The temperatures are slated to be anywhere between -16 and -22, which is verging on dangerous for the players because of how hard the ground will be. So it made sense to move indoors. The Russian Football Union granted them permission. The Russian Premier League overruled them and said, no, you have to play outside. So the game will be outside in Krasnoyarsk. All the tickets will be free, but quite honestly, I'm not sure how many people will turn up for it. Anyhow, all that's off-field. On-field, I think it's actually quite a hard one to call, really. Akhmat Grozny last weekend, they lost at home to TSK. I don't see that as an appalling result simply because I really think the Army men are absolutely flying this season. However, it is a loss at home. So, coming into this one, I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for 1-1. I kind of want to say 0-0, but I'm just saying 1-1 because of Yenisei's confidence boost from last weekend. Either way, I'm going for a draw, 1-1, Yenisei, Akhmat Grozny. Next up, Orenburg against Krylia Sovietov. Again, two teams with very contrasting form over the last few weeks. Orenburg, they started the season very well. They were up in fifth, I think, at one point. They did win last weekend, pardon me, 1-0 against Ufa. Fairly uninspiring. They left it to about the 75th minute. It looked very cold. I didn't check the exact temperature, but it looked fairly chilly conditions. So Krylia coming to Orenburg again could be challenging conditions. Now Krylia then, they won 2 weeks ago, I think it was. But I'm done. Let me check. 3 weeks ago, sorry. Or 3 games ago, I should say. They were 1-0 up against Spartak Moscow. First game under Oleg Kononov, but Spartak came back to win 3-1 with some refereeing decisions helping them, I would say. So Orenburg, they lost in the Russian Cup. They do have Adesoye Adewale back from injury. He played 90 minutes in the Cup. So that's a good boost for them defensively, because that is where they build a lot of their success at home on. Bizarrely, they seem to score more away from home than they do on their own ground. But I think they're going to beat Krylia here. I don't think it's going to be a huge win. So again, I'm only going to go for 1-0 to Orenburg. Okay, moving on. We have Anji against Ufa. Anji, decent 1-1 draw at home to Rubin Kazan. However, they have huge financial problems at the moment. Before round 15, they weren't even allowed into their own stadium because they had failed to pay the rent. They pay, I'm not even entirely sure who the official owner is of the stadium, but they hadn't paid the rent for match day 15. That is worrying, firstly because they shut out their own stadium, but then also when you think they're paying rent on a match-by-match basis. There was rumour of Emirates coming over to sponsor them, but I think that's turned out to be a load of bollocks. So don't buy into that at all. Angie are in trouble, big time. On the pitch, though, they somehow seem to manage, even when they have trouble off it, which is pretty much the status quo for Makhachkala. Now, for the football side, I don't mean to disparage any Dagestanis. I think Angie are going to win this one. Ufa, they've been on a downward spiral for some time. And Andres Ponce has now got 4 goals, I think it is. So they're not really, they're treading water as far as I'm concerned, but they're doing enough. They're treading water slightly better than others, and Ufa are one of the ones they are doing better than, in my opinion. So I'm going for an Angie win. Ufa are still a reasonably solid packed defence. I mean, I say solid in the sense that they pack for defence, not that they are as successful as they were in that department a few years ago. So I'm going to go for 1-0 to Angie. Okay, now moving on to the big boys. And by big boys, I mean Ural. Away to Krasnodar. Sorry, I can't keep a straight face. Away to Krasnodar. Krasnodar are absolutely flying. And at the moment, you'd have to say, if the current form and fitness levels continue as they are, I would say Krasnodar probably may even edge Zenit for the title at this rate. Zenit still have the advantage in points, and I still just about will back Zenit for the title. But Krasnodar are going to push them close and should make Champions League. Ural, 3 games won in a row. And in fact, they have the longest unbeaten streak in the league. They're the only team not to have lost in the last 5 games. In fact, only team not to have lost in the last 4 games. 3 games won in a row. That's put Ural on 22 points, 6th place in the league, 1 point off the Europa League qualification places. This is unprecedented. But Ural, as always, failed to keep a clean sheet. Still the only side not to have kept a clean sheet all season. I'm including Yenisei Krasnoyarsk in that, who conceded 25 goals this season. Ural themselves, up in 6th, have conceded 22. That kind of tells its own story. Much as I would love to be completely biased, I actually don't see Ural managing to make it 4 wins in a row. I'd say at the moment, Krasnodar are the most dangerous side to face. TSKA closely follow them simply because they've had a lot more stressful, shall we say, injuries and European commitments. Krasnodar playing, of course, in Europa League on Thursday, but they're playing against Akhisar, somebody from Turkey. Sorry, Turkish fans. It's slightly less stressful than playing a dual-die game effectively against Victoria Pilsen, which, of course, TSKA lost. We'll get to that more in a moment. So anyway, Krasnodar. Ivan Ignatieff scored. Shapi Suleimanov scored again last weekend in the league. So I don't see anything other than that. And Ural just can't keep a clean sheet to save their lives. I think they might nick a goal, but I'm going to go for, unfortunately, sorry, Ural, 3-1 to Krasnodar. I do see a lot of goals there. Just as a little side note in terms of Krasnodar's goal scoring, they are the top goal scorers in the league with 28. They've had 2 3-0 home wins in a row at home. They're just scoring for fun. So there we go. Moving on, Rostov against TSKA. Now, Rostov, like we say, last weekend, Rostov lost to Zenit away from home. They did okay, but just not enough. Zenit are, even if they are a bit tired or jaded, they are, well, of course, they're a quality side. So there's not really much to read into that, I don't think. It was about what most people probably would have expected. CSKA away to Akhmat Grozny, 2-0 win. Ruined, Timur Jamaletdinov ruined my perfect 1-0 scoreline prediction by scoring in something like the 96th minute after 93 or 3 minutes of added time had been given. But they were comfortable, in control, they looked full of energy, and they were definitely good value for that win. And away to Akhmat Grozny, not an easy place to get a result. So, quite a tough one to call. Rostov at home, as we know, they are very, very strong defensively. Valery Karpin has drilled them into a pretty solid outfit. At home, they've only conceded 3 goals, and that is now the tightest defensive record in the league. CSKA, well, like I say, they're unbeaten away from home. They conceded fewer goals than anyone else away from home. And in fact, only 2 teams have scored more than them. They've won 4, drawn 4. So after European exploits, with the hope, of course, that Zenit or Krasnodar may drop points, unlikely this weekend for Krasnodar at least, and with a trip to the Bernabeu next midweek, I think that, in 2 weeks' time, I think that CSKA will probably struggle to win. So I'm going to go for a draw in this one, and I'm going to go for 1-1. I always back CSKA to score at the moment because of their youthful side that are looking more and more mature by the minute. So I'm going to go for 1-1, Rostov CSKA. That brings us to a sort of Moscow derby. To be honest, it's not really a derby, but just they are both Moscow teams. Spartak at home to Lokomotiv. Spartak, well, Oleg Kononov has come in. He's got that first game out of the way. He's got a win out of the way. It didn't look like going his way, to be honest, at one point. Sergei Kornilenko, ex-Blackpool United legend, scored a decent header in the second half, 0-0 at half-time. Zeluish slid in to defend a cross, and it clearly hit his hand, which was raised, and it was not a orthodox position. It was clear handball penalty, not given. Spartak did manage to get their way back into the game. Some good finishes from Melgarejo and Luis Adriano. So they've scored 3 at home. They've broken their longest ever losing streak at home in the league of 4 games. So they've got that out of the way. Lokomotiv, well, they lost at home to Ural last weekend. They did win in the Champions League midweek last night against Galatasaray, so they've revived hopes of getting into Europa League. You'd imagine they'd want that or need it for the financial benefit alone. But I think Oleg Kononov has just about steadied the ship in the short term enough to have the quality to beat Lokomotiv. I actually am not being convinced by Loko this season for quite some time, actually. I think they'll get found out again. Luis Adriano on fire and Zeluish, of course, those two make a dangerous pairing up front. I'm going to go for 2-1. I think both sides are likely to score. Loko do have the Miranchuk brothers. They might be without Manuel Fernandez, though. That's the only slight injury concern, and that does make a big difference to their attack. But Smolov is playing at the moment, scoring. So always a good for a goal, possibly. 2-1 to Spartak is my call there. And that brings us to the last game. Arsenal Tula at home to Zenit St. Petersburg. Now, this is a tricky game for Zenit. Arsenal at home are a dangerous side. I actually, if I didn't have allegiances to Ural, who are close-ish competitors to them, generally speaking, I would be a big fan of them. I think they play really entertaining, enterprising football. They've got really good wingers out wide. They've got Bakayev on loan from Spartak. They've got Rezuan Mirzov, sorry, awful at pronouncing names. And Sergei Tukachov, of course, he's brilliant with his long shots, his great left foot. Last weekend, Arsenal lost to Krasnodar. Pretty standard result. They've got to pick themselves up again. They're much better at home, though. Zenit, away from home, they're not as convincing as their overall record suggests they might be. I'm going to go for a draw. It's pretty bold to back anybody against Zenit in general, but I just sense that Zenit are getting tired. Artem Dzyuba particularly. So 1-1 to Arsenal Tula is my prediction. Guys, thanks for watching. I know it's been a long, long time, but the prediction tables will be updated as soon as I can. It's very difficult to catch up, but get involved. Good luck.